Yo, what up, y'all? This is the No Level Cap podcast, and this is the No Level Cap crew. We talk about all the video games, all the gaming, and none of the bullshit. Man, we back for another week, and I am here to talk about my favorite fucking thing, where I get to shit on corporations, because I think that's what's gonna be most of this show. To be honest with you, I mean, Terrence is laughing, but he knows what we're getting into this week. We got a couple of subjects. We have like three subjects I wanted to get into, but the first one I wanted to talk about was like, I know everybody saw this stuff about Crunchyroll. And it started with a tweet, but like eventually there was this article that was like done. It's by Evan Minto over at Anime News Network. It's called "The Battle for Union Anime Dubs," and I really want everybody, if you're watching this, go give it a read. It's very good. It goes in depth. It talks about the history of dubbing in America and why Japanese licensors aren't necessarily a big fan of working with union people in America. Like basically. Real to real, give it like the real basic essentials. Basically, they don't like all the residuals and shit like that they get over here. Of course, outside of unions in America, you know, people are free to pay whatever they want. And my understanding is that Funimation is paying something like $35 to $75 an hour. And I mean, like, that might sound like a lot to some people, but like, man, you hear all that shit, all that screaming and hollering they be doing, going Super Saiyan and a shonen anime just to get $75. Boy, there ain't no fucking way. There was also a video I saw from this YouTuber called The Catapult Effect, which said Crunchyroll pays translators like $80 an episode. And the video talked about how competitors will pay either twice or three times as much to translate, just to give you an idea of what other companies are going for, like the competitors. Now, the problem is, with Funimation gone now, because they merged into Crunchyroll, it ain't that many competitors left. What you got, like Netflix, High Dive, Aniplex, and you know maybe a couple others, but like that's not a lot. And like supposedly outside the industry, though, like translating something can be like cost you like $500 or more. $500 seems $400 to $500 is like the minimum, and they talking about $80 in anime, and I'm like that's crazy. And then of course we know that like animators don't get paid shit in anime. Like there have been people at different companies to talk about how little they make. There's shit like animators, like brand new animators, they live in special dorms just so they can live somewhere cheap while they work and improve on their skills. And that was a lot of a long ass intro just for me to point out where the fuck is all this money going? Like Crunchyroll is owned by AT&T. They were, now they're owned by Sony. Now, and neither one of them fucking companies is hurting for nobody's money. And Netflix, 5 years ago, Netflix, I remember an article in 2017, they said they were gonna put $8 billion towards new series and specifically mentioned, not all $8 billion went to anime, but they specifically mentioned like, yo, man, a significant portion of this is going to anime. And like, if you think that that's like, I don't want to hear no bullshit. I don't want nobody in the comments or like, when don't at me on Twitter, get the fuck out of here. We just found out that Netflix has over half of the people that are subscribed to them in 2021 watched anime. I'm not sure if that's worldwide or in North America, but like over half of the people, let's just say it's North America. Over half of the people in North America watched anime on YouTube last year. That's a lot of fucking people, bro. So like, I don't want to like, don't pretend like anime is super niche. It ain't 2000 no more. That shit over with. It ain't back in the day when we had to watch the same episodes of Dragon Ball Z over and over again because Toonami couldn't afford to get it dubbed and Funimation didn't have it dubbed. That shit over with. And let's not pretend like money is not being thrown the fuck around. Like it's guap is being made. And yeah, I know a lot of it because I like made this tweet in response to the Anime News Network article. Like I quote tweeted it and I was like, man, basically I'm making the same point now that I was making then, where I was like, where the fuck is all this money going? And somebody in the comments was like, man, you know, it probably goes to like toys and merchandise. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. That ain't no excuse. It's still billions and billions of dollars going around this industry. And I kind of know what it is in that it's like the NFL and like, it's like the NBA and the MLB. Like when you get a contract, you know, over there, they pay all of it. Like it's fully guaranteed. Somebody get injured, that's just, oh, well, they injured, but we still got to cut them that check. In the NFL, it ain't like that. You get injured and whatever wasn't guaranteed, we ain't got to pay you shit. In fact, at a certain point, once we run out of guaranteed money, we can just cut you and we ain't got to pay you shit. And what that comes down to is like the same thing that's happening in the anime industry happens in the NFL, where they trying to cut corners and save money here and save money there, even as they make more and more money off of like business deals. Like in the NFL's case, they make more money off of selling the cable or whoever and the cable partners. In the anime industry, they make more money off of like, well, you know, we'll sell to this group for this, and we'll sell to this group for that, and we'll make a video game, and that'll make a profit. We'll sell these toys and lunchboxes and shit, and that'll make profits, T-shirts and shit. And then they cut corners by not paying all the people that do the work. Like they cut corners on the animators, they cut corners on the dub actors, they cut corners on everybody. Really, like they it seemed like they don't want to pay nobody, and I just think that's like fucked. Now, one thing I did want to, like, one of the big reasons why I wanted this to lead the topic today is because one of us is a voice actor. He's done voice acting work. He does regular acting work now, and I did want to get your opinion on it, Terrence.
Yeah. So, okay. Just to, as you said, I mean, you said I'm a voice actor, but just to give the audience, I guess, some more background on this. Yeah, I am a voice actor, but I've done mostly I stick to like the indie scene where I've like auditioned for stuff, and I booked a thing or two here and there for like indie stuff. I'm by no means anyone big into voiceover at all. I haven't done like any anime dubbing or like any big video games or anything like that, not yet, but just right
but
now.
You got more experience than the rest of us would have on this.
Yeah.
So I did want to get your perspective.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, just to give some background to the audience here. But yeah, even though I haven't done anything big in the industry, I've been keeping up with the industry since like the early 2010s. I've watched voice actors who are big into anime now. They were on the same forums I was back in those days. And so I've seen the industry evolve. So just to give you some background, I have some insight as to what's going on here. And I definitely have some notes, so kind of forgive me if I go up and down on the page, but there's definitely some stuff that I want to hit on here. One, dubs. Let's get this out of the way. A lot of you might say, ew, dubs. Why should I care? First off, it's not the 19.
I'm gonna say this. I don't watch dubs, and I don't give a fuck. Like, if you do work, you deserve to be paid fairly for it. Period.
Yeah, and trust me, I'm gonna get to that. It's not the 1980s or the 1990s anymore, where dubs are like subpar and they're like laughable in terms of their quality, where the production was not good at all. Nowadays, dubs are taken very seriously. In fact, a lot of the top anime voice actors, they're anime fans themselves, and they entered the industry because they want to take the quality of the dubs up to next level. So a lot of dubs now, if you really sit down and watch them, they are really good. They're well done. The actors, they act their asses off to try and give you the best quality. So even if you don't like dubs, you can't say that these people aren't putting in the effort. And second off, just because you may personally think that dubs are lesser, that doesn't mean that people don't deserve to get paid. Like Sage said, it's like people deserve a living wage. And if you still think that, they don't deserve a living wage just because you think dubs are lesser, I pray that you never work in an industry where you're paid less because you're deemed lesser by your superiors or like your audience or something like that. And if you do get to work in that kind of industry, come back to this video and maybe then you'll have some empathy for what's going on here. But this issue is honestly nothing new. This is something that has taken place for a long time now. This kind of goes back to Pokemon in the early 2000s, like the late 90s, early 2000s, like with the Pokemon movies. Those movies, they made bank at the box office. And let's be real, no one was really watching the Pokemon movies in sub. Everybody, for Pokemon, Pokemon was pretty much like an American cartoon where it was treated like, just regular Western voice acting. And that's how most people are exposed to Pokemon. Let's be real. But yeah, those movies were making major bank at the box office back then. And yet the actors weren't really seeing any cuts from that. They were getting paid like minuscule wages. In fact, there's a documentary about voice acting called Adventures in Voice Acting back in 2008, where there was a segment where they talked about how voice actors were, underpaid back then, that it would be a struggle to make it just working on anime. And games were sometimes, they would pay more, but a lot of times the anime stuff would come around, more frequently. So that was in 2008. So yeah, this is definitely by no means new. But let's fast forward to where we are now. Well, let's fast forward to within like the past 5 years. In 2017, Sony acquired Funimation for $150 million. In 2021, Sony bought Crunchyroll for $1 billion. In 2021, the Demon Slayer movie practically tied with MK at the box office. And they was like the gross was like 20 million or something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think that's pretty close. Just this year, the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero movie, that debuted at number 2 at the box office, right behind the Batman. So, okay, you can make the argument back then, well, anime was still this niche thing. There's no way that, people were going to get paid a lot for it. That argument can't fly now. Anime is pretty much mainstream now. Anime is no longer like this niche thing where, just basement dwellers are like your stereotypical like geeks are watching that. You can walk into Walmart or Target and you can just go to like the clothing aisle and you'll see T-shirts with anime characters and all sorts of anime properties on. You can go to JCPenney and just get straight up anime and video game shirts. Hot Topic, all these stores, GameStop, all these places have anime merchandise now. We can't ignore the fact that the industry has money. So like Sage said, where is it going? Why aren't people getting paid? The proof is there. The money is in anime, and it's no longer like this niche thing that, can only afford to pay you pennies. So if you're listening to all this and you're thinking, okay, well, dub actors deserve more, fine. Well, what about the translators? What about animators? We hear about them all the time. What about them? Shouldn't they get more too? And my answer to that is yes, they should. You're right. But for right now, we're just talking about the actors because they're the ones standing up for their pay. I hope one day that animators, translators, and other people in the industry, they stand up and realize that they should be paid more for what they do. It's a shame that anime and gaming has this problem too, where there are these big entertainment industries that bring so many people joy that we love to get on Twitter and talk about them and everything day in and day out. But the people who are behind this, who make these products, they aren't fairly compensated for their work. And it's just not right. So ultimately, that's my take on it, is that anime is too big to not be paying people what they're worth.
Facts. All facts. And here's the thing, I don't want to hear none of this nonsense about well, don't these other people deserve too? Yeah, they do deserve more. All of them deserve, because you're not gonna tell me this not some CEO sitting there with a fucking worth 9 figures and shit, sucking up all the goddamn money. You're not gonna tell me where's all these billions dollars? Where's all this fucking money going? If not to the people that do the work. You're not gonna sit here and tell me that somebody not sucking this money up that hadn't done none of the work. They go out and they shake some hands and they do the business work. And I'm not saying that's not important, but I don't care. You can't sell a box. You can't sell a box with them but the parts in it. Somebody gotta put that bitch together. So at some point, you gotta pay the people that's putting the shit together. That's just how it has to be. I'm not gonna say that's how it should be. That's how it has to be at some point. Otherwise, you're gonna run into some issues. And now I want to pull it to Rakeem because I know that Rakeem lately has been getting into acting and voice acting and stuff like that. Because you do got what we like to call the golden voice around here. So I do want to get your opinion on it.
Oh yeah, thanks, Sage. Also caveat: if Terrence is as he stated his part of the industry, I am a neophyte even in the comparison to Terrence. Terrence is 10 times the level of how I've gotten into. I'm very basic, but just getting into voice acting and learning about it, we think about how the work structure works. It's not a consistent job. I think when people think about jobs with voice acting or dubbing or things like that, a lot of those jobs you're not working consistently, especially with voice acting. You're working from gig to gig. You're working, and basically in these industries, you have to work multiple jobs, multiple takes, and this stuff takes a lot of time. And there's no guarantee that you will always get a job. I remember when I talked to some people in the industry, who did classes, they talked about it when they started. There were times where they had some good runs, where they had some jobs, and there were weeks they didn't get anything. So the amount of money you make, you have to capitalize on as much as you can, as fast as you can. But to think about this situation with the pay in the anime industry, it doesn't surprise me because think about how all these other industries are affected by this. Amazon just recently just started their unionization, this week they finalized it. And look how long Amazon's been around and how profitable Amazon is. Has the richest man in the freaking world was the head CEO. He's not the CEO anymore. So this affects every worker. And any company on earth is always going to prioritize its profitization towards income, towards itself over the pay structure. If they can skim money off pay and keep things a certain way, they're going to keep it that way. That's why you have, if anybody here has ever worked in the office, that's why you have Windows 2000 XP and not Windows 10 for 20 years, because they didn't feel a need to do that. I've been in jobs where The computers didn't even work correctly anymore because it was so outdated, and they still didn't update the software until they were forced to. So anyway, these companies can skim money and take stuff back and find ways to cut corners, they're going to do it. And as far as like just just kind of working towards like the voice actors, like working how the voice actors are working towards the unionization and speaking out. I think it's great, and I think it's also the times we're living in. People are it's the fed up times. Everything's we're talking about like cancellation, the things we're revealing in the industry. People are kind of sick of BS in any form, whether it's harassment, sexual assault, things that have been going on in Hollywood. There were issues, things that happen. We're wrestling fans here. Professional wrestling industry went through it, and now it's in the animation industry. In this case, not necessarily harassment, but just fair wages. And to me, as long as people can get fair wages, no matter what their situation is, if we can make the situation better, freaking do it. I saw the example that Capcom had earlier. We found out this week they increased the pay of the workers by 30%. I think that is a good stride and a good example because, as you know, anybody who's watched the media, watched the news lately, has seen for the last few months the worker shortage has been going on in all of these companies. And we have the stigma as Americans that like you're supposed to work for what you got, you're supposed to work no matter what, and that older people cannot understand or fathom why these kids are leaving these jobs, good jobs, and it hits every industry. I've seen places I've worked where people had good pay, like legitimately good pay, decent hours, and they left those jobs because people are not putting up with BS anymore. If they can look and find something better, they're going to. So the example that Capcom had with the 30% wage increase, I'm thinking that industries need to wake up and see this might be the move in the future. You gotta start fighting this ahead of time, get ahead of the horse. If you see these industries over here, these companies over here are starting to have worker strikes and compensation issues and harassment issues, you might want to clean up your mess before the fiasco happens. But yeah, besides that, Terrence pretty much hit the nail on the head better than anything I could have. I really liked his example and the information he brought towards it. That's how I feel on the matter. I think companies right now, as far as anime, voice acting, any other part of the industry that's going on when they feel like they're not getting paid fair wages, dubbing. Um, I think these industries, these companies, these anime companies need to think ahead and not think about the now, not just about profits, not just about where they can cut corners, not trying to keep things from the 90s still going on because they will do that. People will do that. If they can keep you in the mindset and the pay scale of the 90s, that's why worker wages universally haven't gone up even with inflation. That's the issue that's been going on across America right now. If they need to get ahead of the curve, they need to see that these issues are not going to go away. And if it hits one company, it can hit yours. Go ahead and raise that pay up.
Now that was a good take. One thing I will point out is the thing that a lot of anime and not just anime but video game like the industries like entertainment industries take advantage of one thing that no other industry can take advantage of, and what that is a passion. Like you get in there and what you want more than anything is you want to work in video games. You want more than anything to work in anime, to work in comic books, to work in manga. And so you'll take less money because you're like, at least I'm working my dream. I know a little bit about that. I'm like, what always wanted to do was like write. And I do a little bit of writing. I'm a freelance writer and I get paid. And I probably am, I don't say probably am. I definitely am working for less than what I should be working. And that's just like a part of the game. And like there are a lot of places that will try to tell you that, well, this is a great, well, the thing that they'll always tell you is it's a competitive rate. And competitive is it's a misleading term because like if the top guy is paying trash and everybody else is like, we pay like right around that area, that's still trash. Like, you still not doing nothing. You just paying commensurate with what everybody else they trash rate is. So like they always they take advantage of people and who just want to be who just want to contribute to something that is given so much to them. And what winds up happening is so often that people give way too much to the industry, whether it's gaming, comic books, anime. They give way too much to those industries than they ever got back. Will, do you have anything that you wanted to add to it?
I feel as if our brothers Keem and Terrence really hit this nail on the head for this one, as they do have experience with it. I choose to not speak on this because I don't have experience in said fields to actually say what I need to say. But from more of like I guess, a moral and ethical standpoint, I feel like just simply pay these people, because sooner or later it's gonna catch up to you, whether you like it or not. You can try to hide it and be like, "Oh well, it'll be fine. We can just keep hitting these races and they'll stay," or we can just get them like a little bump and then they'll stay and take them back down. Do shady business tactics and whatnot. But I think sooner or later some company's gonna catch hell for that, and those translators and animators and so on and so forth, they're gonna walk. And the minute they do, you can't just sit up here and replace it and be like, we can still produce that same show. You cannot do such things when the original people walk away. So pay them or lose them. Is one or the other. You can't win both ways. You can't pay them and keep them on bullshit wages. You can't do it.
I kind of want that to be true. Like I certainly like it would be nice, but it's gonna take some time if I could see that happening, but it probably would take time. I do know the video game industry is running into problems retaining like senior programmers and whatnot, like people in senior positions, just because they burn out, they get tired, they spend so much time, like, and that's why if you're one of the people that care about this kind of thing, where you track the development of a game, or like whether or not a game is going to be announced, you look through like job openings. Like people do that. Sometimes they'll track job openings. And what you'll see is a lot of senior positions are open and stay open because people just leave. They get tired. They're like, look, I can't take the harassment. I can't take the low wages. I can't take the long hours. I'm out. And then they leave and then they don't come back. And one day, I don't know if we see that anytime soon, but I could see that one day if like the cost of living keeps going up. Eventually, even if you're passionate about it, you probably still got to bounce. There's probably still no other option because you just can't stay working those same trash wages. So I do want to shift topics. The second topic I wanted to get into is PlayStation Plus. Like, okay, like we know that they're merging PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. I'm gonna just give a quick rundown of what the because it's gonna be like a 3-tier system. And so like I'll give a quick rundown. The base plan is PlayStation Plus Essential, which is going to be the same thing as the PlayStation Plus you have now. You get your 2 monthly games, which is interesting because it means that they're going to downgrade you from 3 games a month, which was I think 2 PlayStation 4 and 1 PlayStation 5. They're going to downgrade you to two downloadable games a month. You'll get your usual discounts, your cloud storage. You'll get to to get on your multiplayer. It'll run you $10. The next tier is PlayStation Plus Extra. It offers you 400 games across the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. You'll be able to download all of them, which is good. That's better than I think now. I think PlayStation Now demanded you stream all of them. The tier will cost $14.99 a month or $100 a year. And then the last tier was PlayStation Plus Premium, which is going to add another 340 games on top of the existing 400, including some PlayStation 3 games, which unfortunately will be streaming because they never figured out how to do native PS4, PS3. And then you'll also be able to have access to PlayStation 2, and PSP games, and you can stream them or download them. That tier will run you $20 a month. No, excuse me, $17.99 a month, and about $120 every year. What the tier will not have is day and date first party titles like Xbox Game Pass. At launch, you'll get stuff like Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Marvel's Miles Morales, and Returnal. So that'll be what you get. I don't think I like this, but I also wasn't subscribed to PlayStation Plus, so I'm not really their audience. I do still feel like Xbox Game Pass is like the top tier. Like I don't think that there's anything bigger or more impressive than Xbox Game Pass, because I don't know how you beat day and date first party releases. Like when Starfield comes out, all you have to do is pay your $15 a month, or if you've never subscribed to Game Pass, I think it's like $1 still for the first month or for the first 3 months. So like you're not paying really much of shit to enjoy all these games, and you can do them on both Xbox and PC. And with Sony, you coming off all this money, and you can really only access them on PS5. Will, I remember you said you had a lot that you wanted to say about it. You want to go ahead?
Oh man, I got a lot to say about this one as someone who's been a part of PS Plus for so many years right now. Now, he just gave you the quick rundown of it and everything. And as of right now, like he said, we get 3 games basically, 1 for PS4 and basically kind of like 2 for PS5, or sometimes depending on if those games are like kind of cross-gen, we kind of have 3 games we can pick from. Now, my biggest problem with this whole thing is after kind of going over it, like when I first heard about it, I was hyped because I was like, this is something great I can get into. But when a problem came into play, it was the pricing and the things that I'm getting. I don't like the fact that they haven't figured out this whole native PS3 emulation thing. They hadn't figured that out. If they could have figured this out somewhere a long time ago, we wouldn't have no issues. Same thing with the whole PS1, PS2, and PSP games. Mind you, they didn't add Vita into this whole list. So, but I kind of got an idea of that, and maybe because of the touchscreen that some of those games use. Some of those games use that touchscreen, so a lot of those games will not be able to be used on this. So, understandable, no issue, no harm, no foul. Now, this is one of my big problems with it. In that last tier, you get those classic games I mentioned, right? Y'all ever thought about how the fact that we bullied them into keeping that store open on PS3, but for some reason they want to give us all of this in that last tier? That's going to end up closing that store down. I'm certain of it. They're doing this without saying it. That's what they're doing. They're doing that without saying it. And the worst part is that they're mixing PS9 and PS Plus. $120 a year, I don't find that feasible at all whatsoever. I really do not. As I'm already paying you $60 just to be playing games online with my friends and to have this cloud storage and getting those free games every month. If anything, I feel like from top to bottom, I feel like maybe $50 a year for the base tier. $50 a year for that. If you want to talk to that second tier, maybe $90, maybe $85 a year. But when we get to that last tier, I can maybe justify $100 or $95 on the year. I can't justify $120. It's out of the damn question. Sony, I'm gonna be real with you. You don't have to see this video. You don't have to see me because you probably don't like me as it is right now because I'm criticizing your tactics. You ain't paying me. Fuck you. But simply get it together because this greed is gonna kill y'all in the long run. I just feel it. People still gonna buy. I know. I can't change that. It's just like with Nintendo. They put the same shit out, $60, and it's a 30-year-old game. People gonna buy it regardless. People gonna continue to do this shit here too. But I think that $120 tier and that $100 tier are gonna keep people from buying it. And when they see that, they have no choice but to work around it. If they cannot work around it, they have to remove it. It's something that has to be changed on it. And that's how I feel. I fucking can't stand this. I feel strongly about it. And if you have anything to say, by all means, please do. I want to hear what you have to say about it.
So here's my thing. Is the problem that it doesn't offer day and date? Because I feel like Xbox Game Pass is like what $15.99. I mean $14.99, I believe, right now.
Yeah,
and there's no reason to believe it's going to stay at that price. It's definitely going to go up between like the reason why it's at that price now is because they still need that family. Well, I won't say family friendly. That welcoming sense. Like, okay, as fans, like we want you to come in and try us out and give us a chance. And right now, the whole thing of selling like, oh, well, we got first party games day and date. It's like, well, what first party games? Like, hell, Halo is out here struggling. Ain't nobody playing that bitch.
And remember, they tried to raise the price before.
Did they?
Yeah, didn't they try to raise the price of Game Pass before?
They probably did. I tried that. And
then like the backlash, yeah.
I'm probably blanking on this because like it lasted no time because like
they turned coat in like 24 hours.
That's why I forgot. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm not surprised because like they don't have enough yet. Like as far as them trying to like, oh, we're gonna raise the price of Game Pass. No, the fuck you not. You can't yet. So I mean, like it's I can see 2 years from now, like once they get Starfield out and Starfield is like that new crack. On some GTA level shit where people just keep coming back to it and keep coming. Well, I won't say GTA, like Skyrim, because I mean that is Bethesda. You have so many people coming back and like, oh, I gotta come back, and they might, and then like you have other games come out, Redfall, Avowed, and like because I'm sure, and we're gonna get into their E3 in a little bit because we're gonna get into E3 in a little bit, but like I'm sure when they have their E3 thing and whatever that is, and they show all the new games, like as more and more IP come out and you have more and more reasons to play them. First party reasons at that, they'll edge the price on up because what choice will you have? But like as for right now, I think that price is like where it needs to be. And do you think and this is just a quick question, do you think it would be better if instead of it being $17.99, it was $14.99?
Instead of $17.99 to be $14.99, yeah, I think it'd do better in that sense, honestly, because like I say, people look at price points all the time. People walk in with their wallets first on what they want to spend. They don't walk in like, yeah, I'm gonna just get this and go. No, it's more like, what does it look like? Can I afford it? And can I go ahead and take it home and be happy with it? And that's where it's gonna be. And the other problem I have, because you mentioned it, because I thought about it too. Game Pass Ultimate runs well alongside a damn PC.
Yeah.
Sony ain't got that, but Sony sure as hell got games on PC. So I'm trying to figure out how you gonna stick me here on this system and not offer me anything more. Anything more than just, oh, you can do this, you can do that, and cut that streaming stuff out. That streaming stuff is not gonna last you long. Gaikai is not gonna last. It's not.
I mean, well, they bought Gaikai, and that's a good point. Glad you brought it up. They bought Gaikai because it was a really good streaming service that would allow them to stream their games. And so they took Gaikai, bought it, and incorporated it and basically created PS Now. Of course, nobody cared about PS Now because it was a bunch of old games. Like, the thing that gets Xbox Game Pass is not only that it is old games, but it's new games as well. So you can play like, oh, I got it to play this new game that just came out, like Weird West. I think that's Game Pass day one. You get it to play Weird West, and then you keep it because you look and you're like, oh, this old game from like 20 years ago that I always loved. I can play that now. So like that's a bit of that helps to balance it out. I do wonder if going forward Sony's gonna have problems because there aren't that many day and date games. But I would like your opinion, Rakeem. What do you think?
Go ahead.
This is an interesting topic for me because, well, two things. Just like Will, I'm a very old adapter of PS Plus. For those of you who don't know, PS Plus originally used to be a digital magazine on the console. It had like videos, exclusive takes, and interviews for like game developers and things like that, demos, and that's how the format used to be. So Sony has experimented with this model for PS Plus for a long time. Then they got into the two-game model. People really like that. And remember, Sony kind of innovated that model, giving the free games every month, and then Xbox kind of piggybacked off it later. This is an interesting topic for me because I called this about 2 or 3 years ago. I called it. I was like, I saw what PS Now was doing. I saw the success of Game Pass. I was like, PS Now is going to combine with PS Plus. That's the only thing that makes sense, how this is going to go. Because like this system with the two games can't compete with what Game Pass is doing. It's just too, it's better. But I called this like 2 years ago, and I thought to myself, like, if they can do an integration of PS Now into PS Plus, and they focus on like getting those exclusives into that program, that might be a successful combination. Obviously, since they're not doing first party games, which is to me ridiculous. That's your one advantage against Xbox. The first party games. That's what you come to play Sony games for. Their first party games. It is ridiculous that you're not putting that as like your day ones. And I get there's probably some feasibility in there. They crunched some numbers. They did some statistics. They thought about the return they get. Would it be worth an investment? F all that. The visibility now. This is the era of visibility. What you do in front of an audience means more sometimes than your statistics can. We all remember that E3 where Xbox had that presentation. I don't know if this was when the Xbox One was first announced. And they had everything but games. Everything you do but games. And you guys remember the backlash they got from that. And then Sony came right around. And Sony came right around. What they do? Games. And they won the PS4 era because of that. That almost gave them the headstart they needed. Too. Yes, they won it before they launched.
Oh man.
The visibility and perspective on like what your gamers see you doing can matter more than your long-term returns and statistics. Mm-hmm. And this looks really bad because what you're showing to gamers with this presentation of new PS Plus is that, hey, we're trying to do our own version of Game Pass. It's just to get the most out of it, it's more expensive and it's worse. That's all they're going to see. I like the fact that we're getting some PS1, PS2, PS3 era stuff. The thing with the PS3 and not being downloaded, that's iffy, but I'm the type of gamer where I kind of sample games anyway, so I'm okay with like streaming games here and there. I know I'm not a collector. I'm more of a sampler. I like to play games here, play this here, play this here, play this there, and play around with it. But just the visibility of this, it looks so bad. It looks like for the first time, Sony's on the back foot and Xbox has gotten ahead of them, and they didn't know how to react to it because they've been the guys who've been on the forefront for so long. They've had such positivity from gamers. Not, they've had their issues here and there. Some of their conferences have been iffy. Some of their decision making with some of their financial stuff has been iffy. Paying for the whole era. Remember back in the day before we had to pay for like freaking online, and when they started making you pay for online, how stupid that concept was for us at the time. Man, how things have changed. But yeah, just my perspective on that is that the visibility of this to me is the real issue. Like Sony has to find a way to fix, even if they have to just change a few things, just fix the visibility. For one thing, I don't know why they didn't launch this new program under a new name. Just give it a different branding, give it a different idea. Now, hey, we're just combining PS Plus and PS Now. Nobody gave a fuck about PS Now anyway. So now you're giving me a service that I'm kind of iffy about because I always get everything I want from it and I'm paying for anyway. But service I didn't want.
Good point.
And then trying to make it seem like, oh, this is great. This is just, this knockoff Game Pass. It's the best thing for us right now. No, you can't do that. They need to, like, somebody in that marketing team needs to wake up. Not even necessarily the business model and all that. That can be tuned out over time. This is them testing the waters of what they want to do. To me, this is almost experimental. It's like, hey, this is our take on Game Pass. We're going to invest in a little bit. This is how we got in the front line. And down the line, we'll probably make some more improvements to it, improve the library, maybe change our stance on first party. We change our stance on first party, no matter what. I don't care what anybody says. But to me, they're like, this is more of an experiment to them to kind of get into the Game Pass field. But whoever's in the marketing department, they need to learn how to make this stuff look better. The visibility of this has to change. Even if they just do something where, like, they find a way to get some expansion on the library, make it, and then like really get in on the gamers' nostalgia, making like really, really big classics the focus of the PS Now. If they want to do it that way, that's a good approach they could do. Or like, just make it, add some stuff to it. Hey, maybe that digital magazine that they had back in the day, they can try that again for a little bit. Add some more exclusive stuff with certain developers. Be like, get the first take on demos that people didn't have before, or like have an early access system or something that in PS like that Steam has been going on, something like that. Just do something different. That's all I had to say about it.
So you want us to bring back PlayStation Underground, huh?
So you covered a lot, and I think what you really, the thing you talk about visibility. I think what you want, what you're saying is like perception is reality.
Yes.
And they need to shift their perception. And I agree with that.
Yes.
I will say the thing that you said at the end, where like all the stuff that they should offer, those are all really cool ideas that would not work out in practice because gamers bitch too much. Like ultimately, when you talk about like an online magazine, that like, what are you gonna give me unless you're willing to give me some scoops and exclusives that are not going to go to IGN? They are not going to go to Game Informer, like stuff that I can't get anywhere else. But the thing about that is, once it hits or like once it hits PlayStation Now or whatever, PlayStation Magazine, like the new PlayStation Mag, once it hits that, it's just going to be reported by everybody else. And so like it's basically, what was the point of even putting it on there in the first place? As far as early access games, gamers bitch too much about them. Like I know it because I've seen it happen way too often where I'll look at like a game and it'll be like in development. And they'll show it off, and people will be like, I don't like this, I don't like this, and I don't like this. And they showed it too early. Don't show it until it's ready. And then these are the same people that wonder why it takes so long before you see a game. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, because like you want it to be perfect every time you see it, even though that motherfucker not out yet. So that's kind of crazy. I will say, one thing that you pointed out that made me think for a second is that Xbox Game Pass, everybody thought it was going to merge with Xbox Live Gold. And it never did. There was a rumor about it, and it still never happened. And that suggests to me something, because PlayStation Now did indeed have to, because like you just said, nobody gave a fuck about PlayStation Now. And so it got merged into PS Plus. And I'm not really shocked, because like one of these things was making money and one of them wasn't. And then the other thing is, Xbox just like you said, has been better lately, like as far as perception and keeping, I mean, like ultimately PlayStation's going to be all right. Like, sales-wise, I think they've moved 15, 16 million consoles so far. And, I think Xbox is not too far behind them. But, like, the thing that they have over PlayStation is they have the Xbox Series S, which is always on the market. Like, you can always go get one. Even if it is cheaper, even if it is kind of a weaker system than the X or the PS5, it's still out there. And that still is an option, a gateway, if you will, into next gen. Terrence, how do you feel about all of this?
So here's how I think Sony dropped the ball. I don't think there should have been 3 tiers for this. I think there should have just been PS Plus Essential, as they're calling it, or just regular PS Plus as it is now. And then you have this PS Plus Premium, but have it at the $14.99 price. Because the thing is, what's really making this not seem like a good deal in comparison to Game Pass is that $3 extra. The fact that it's $17.99 in comparison to Game Pass, and let's see, what is it? It's PS Plus Essential, then it's
Extra.
and then it's Premium. So it's like the extra is like, so okay. And here's the wild thing about all this is that had you told me like years ago that Microsoft of all companies would be the one out of the big three that's better at game preservation, I would have been like, no, like that's crazy, crazy talk. But here we are where Game Pass, one of their big things is you have access to Xbox 360, Xbox One, and you have, of course, the latest Xbox games. Nintendo can't even get their shit together on that, where it's like they're still having problems with having to rebuy games that people bought on like the Wii and like Wii U and whatnot. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But the fact that Sony doesn't have it in their, the fact that Sony couldn't just make it where you have regular PS Plus, then you have PS Plus Premium, and forget this whole PS Plus Extra thing. Honestly, the PS3 games and PS1, PS2, and PSP, and no Vita games, which that's wild too. But I will say that I think at this point, a lot of the Vita games that people want, they have had PS4 versions. There might still be some missing, don't get me wrong, but I think for the most part, the Vita games that people played a lot of, they have been made into PS4 games. Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of wild to me, this tier thing that Sony's doing. It's like, maybe it will pan out for them in the long run, but just honestly, just as a comparison to Game Pass, it just doesn't stack. I mean, Game Pass not only has access to the entire, span of the Xbox, entire span of like the Xboxes, not all the games, but I mean, it has access to all the Xboxes of the yesteryear. Yeah, it has access to a lot of the games. Not only
200 to
that,
300 games. I said about 200 to 300 games about every month, and only like a select few of them may cycle in and out on Game Pass, because we have Game Pass Ultimate cards where it gives you access to Xbox Live plus the Game Pass. So it's $14.99 a month for that. For every like all quarterly, it's $45.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
and then not only that, you have EA Play, which is a part of it. I mean, that's big. And then, like you all mentioned, it's also on PC. So for Sony to charge more for this thing that's ultimately less, because let's be real, this is a direct answer to Game Pass. Let's not bullshit it. This is Sony's answer to Game Pass. And as an actual answer to Game Pass, it just kind of falls flat. It's not bad. It's not like just this horrible thing, but it really needs to be reworked in some areas. I just think Sony is at this point where it's kind of like just that Sony arrogance where they think they can just do anything and people will accept it. And I think, the pushback that they're getting on this, is rightfully deserved. Now, they're probably just going to be able to ignore that pushback and put it out, and, some people will buy it and some people won't. So ultimately, I don't think anything is really going to change unless there's just a huge wave of criticism towards them on this. But yeah, I just think that Sony overall just dropped the ball. In comparison to Microsoft, this ain't it, Chief.
Best way to put it, bro.
Now, one thing you brought up is the whole game preservation thing, and that's what's my man's name? Crazy Ken Kutaragi. That's him coming back. That's his specter over Sony, kind of coming back to bite Sony in the ass, because Sony always had Ken coming up, and he was always wanting them to do these wild, weird, unique computer architectures, and so you'd wind up with PlayStation 2. A lot of people may not remember this. Y'all might not remember this, but PS2 CPU was originally called the Emotion Engine, and it was supposed to be like really special and unique in a way that like regular x86 just wouldn't have been, or whatever the fuck they were. I think it was still x86 back then, if I'm not mistaken. It was like supposed to be unique in a way that like normal like any other architecture wouldn't be. And then the PlayStation 3 had the Cell processor, which was notoriously really hard to program for. And then with the PS4, they went with a different design. I think what's my man's name? I forget his full name, but Cerny. When he was like, Mark Cerny. Yeah, he was like, we're gonna redesign it, and instead of doing some wild, weird architecture, we're just gonna put it on x86. which means that it'll be backwards compatible going forward. So that's why the PS5 plays PS4 games, and if the PS6 is on x86, it'll play PS5 and PS4 games. Like, it's just gonna work that way going forward. And the thing is, I'm pretty sure you can just the emulation. I don't know if you can do it natively with PS3 because it's such a wild architecture, and to include it would have raised the cost of the PS5 significantly. So I do understand why they got fucked. They just should have never done that in the first place because it screwed them during that generation, and it's screwing them now because now people are like, what if I want to play, I don't remember. Like, I wasn't really big into PS3. The Last of Us.
What if I want to play Final Fantasy 13?
They will eventually remake that, but that one for right now, that is a great one.
They haven't done it in like 10 years.
It is beautiful.
But anyway, continue on what you're saying.
Look, man, Square remastered everything. They gonna get back around to it, but it might take a while. So for right now, like if somebody did want to play Final Fantasy 13, like the trilogy, they're screwed. They got to go dig out their PS3. So like, that was a mistake from jump, and that's just a problem. And then like, as far as the thing that y'all brought up, like Keem and Terrence both brought this up. As far as like why they're not available on PC, the reality is that bit Xbox in the ass for years, and it's only now that people are finally letting it go. Because for years, I would say years, but like for like the first 2 years or so of Xbox Game Pass, everybody was like, why would I buy an Xbox? Like, what would be the point? There's no point because I can just get it on PC. And even now, as PS4 games, not PS5 games, PS4 games are coming to PC, you're starting to see Sony fanboys melt the fuck down because they're just like, oh my God, like, what's the point? Like, why would I even own a PS4 if I could get it on PC? Like, I mean, because you ain't got no PC that's going to play it like that. That's why.
And also, it's like 2 years later. It's like, come on, man, you had plenty of time to play the game.
Tell 3, 4 years. So you had time, and you also you ain't spending the money to get like a PC that's gonna play it on that level. Like you got a PS5, so what's the problem? And then the other thing is Xbox is known for its multiplayer games. It's known for your Halos and your Gears, which is a single player, but it does have multiplayer, I think. I know Forza does. So like when you have all these games with multiplayer, you can make money off of the multiplayer battle pass and off of the multiplayer microtransactions, season passes, and you get in people's pockets. And so that's ultimately why they don't have a problem with selling you day and date first party games. Sony ain't got that right now. Like what Sony has is a bunch of games where you buy it for $60, you play it, and then that's it. And if
Sony has this, a movie.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, I would say, what is that?
The Foreigner.
Oh.
He said, just a movie. He's like, essentially, you buy it, you watch it, and you're done.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's exactly correct. They got moved. Like you buy it. If you really, really fucking love it, you can go back and play it again. But most people, it's a one and done experience. Like I played it. It was beautiful. It was great. It's it's high quality, effectively like a cinematic experience. And once you're done, and there's no need to ever go back to it. As opposed to like Halo or Forza, where I like even if I beat the campaign of Halo, like. I mean, there ain't shit in there right now because they fucked up the games as a service aspect. But if there were, you'd come back for it. And it's with Forza, like, you finish Forza, like, there's a campaign, but you're not getting Forza for the campaign. You got Forza to come back and play it month after month after month with your friends and with people online. And until Sony is working on, I think we said this last year, they're working on, last week, they're working on up to 10, they want to have at least 10 multiplayer games on their console by, like, 2026. So over the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years, they're going to have a lot of multiplayer games. And when they get to that, I can see them finally coming back and being like, you know what, we can do day and date. But for right now, as long as it is a Horizon Forbidden West, where you play it, you finish it, and unless you're like in love with it, you never touch it again. Like I just don't see them doing day and date, and that is a problem. Which this kind of pivots because like I talked about like when they announced certain games, and there's the Ultimate Announce Fest that recently got canceled. The ESA, the people responsible for E3, they wanted to do an in-person E3 this year. Of course, they haven't been able to do one. It would have been their first in the last in years, but because in 2020, of course, they had to cancel it for obvious reasons, and then in 2021 they had to do a digital one. This year they were going to do an in-person E3, but they were forced to cancel that back in January as Omicron and shit started popping up. And the thought was they would go back to digital like last year for this year, but ultimately they confirmed there won't be an E3 at all. Now, here's the thing. how important is E3 now? You know, like Sony, fuck that. Nintendo gave up on E3 ages ago. Ages and ages ago. They've been doing Nintendo Direct since I was in college, and I was in college in 2011. Like, I graduated in 2015. They've been doing Nintendo Directs for years. Sony, they gave up. They had that one really embarrassing performance where they like basically just showed you all the games that they had already done before, but they put you in a theater, so it was supposed to be special. And then after that, they were like, all right, people didn't like that. And then they did that weird one in like a tent where they were trying to show off Last of Us or whatever. And then that didn't work out. And then after that, they were like, we done with E3. EA, they disconnected from E3 ages ago. They had the EA Play. It occurs before E3 officially starts, even the pre-E3. It occurred on a Saturday. And they canceled that this year. They looked around at what they were going to have to prepare, and they were like, we ain't really got nothing, so there won't be an EA Play this year. So, like, everybody's been canceling E3, their version of E3 presentation, and everybody's slowly giving up on it as they were going online with it because they realized we can reach the same audience, a better audience. We can reach a wider audience by just going online. Right. And it makes me wonder, is there a point to E3 now? Like, I know Jeff Keighley, I don't think Jeff Keighley, he like immediately after they announced like we can't do E3 anymore, Jeff Keighley was like, y'all can do E3, but I can. And he popped up there with the Summer Games Fest kickoff. Like that same day, within like hours, he was like, I got mine. And like he announced something today, just a few hours ago, like before we went live, a few hours ago, he announced like basically the format for his Summer Games Fest Live. It's gonna, instead of it being trapped inside of all of summer, June, July, August, whatever, it's just gonna be in the month of June. It'll be multiple events, and they'll be co-streamable. I'll probably co-stream a couple of them. We'll talk about them on the show. Yeah. But like ultimately, like that's how it's gonna go down. And so I wonder, like, are we really losing anything? Will, do you think we're losing anything?
Honestly, man, it's just like you mentioned, how every company is coming out and doing their own little thing, like Nintendo Directs, the EA Play or EA Access, I think, something like that. And then we also have Capcom doing their thing, Square Enix Presents. We have a lot of those shows out and about now, and at this point in time, as much as I hate to say it, as someone who was always longed to go to an E3, at this point in time, we're really not losing much with E3 being gone. And especially with Jeff Keighley, shout out to him. I would have never thought he'd be out here just doing this.
Man,
I just
real.
I remember him just being the dude I seen on G4. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, that's a cool guy. Now all of a sudden he out here leading game shows and stuff. Like, look at him. But we're not missing much of anything with E3 being gone now. We have every company doing their own little thing and having their own little list of whatever they want to show us from Sony, Microsoft. Everyone has something. Even indie developers. Like I think we just had the New Game Plus Expo? Didn't we just had it recently?
The 31st, I believe.
Yeah, we just had that recently. So it's so many shows. I think the only like drawback to it is that we have to keep up with so many shows along the way to know exactly what we're looking for or what we're trying to see. Because with E3, everything was just kind of there, and you may have had one or two outlier shows somewhere in the rest of the year. But now it's like shows all through the year, or maybe just hitting the summer and a good chunk of it in the winter. So it's like keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and be sure to look at what you want to see. And we also got to keep out for like major events for like fighting games. Like if you're like into fighting games, you got to watch those to see the announcements. You got to sit through top 8. So
that's a good point. In fact, those are two good points. Like Jeff Keighley, effectively now, he's built the gaming industry around 3 big events. Summer Game Fest kickoff, Gamescom opening night live, and then the Game Awards, which people have taken to calling the Keighley's, because he's running the show. So like he's built it around those 3 events. And then the other thing you said that was a really good point is that the fighting game community, basically, you get your news from like fighting game shows, like fighting game tournaments and shit. So it's like some communities are like that, not just fighting games, but some communities you get your new news from like inside the community, like at some competitive event. Rakeem, how do you feel about E3 shifting like this?
Well, first of all, I'm ashamed of Jeff Keighley because he showed up like Vince McMahon did back in the last episode of WCW with the whole world in his hands. He says, I own my competition. Now, he didn't buy E3, but he effectively has bought specifically the presentation of games media. He runs it now. Whether you want to admit it or not, he is the face of the presentation of games media. It's a little sad, like a lot of things, but basically E3 is starting to go the way of the magazine. Like magazines did back in the 90s and like news. And it's funny, I mentioned digital magazine earlier, but now it actually kind of brings up the point that Sage said that's not feasible anymore. Something goes out of style once it's not needed anymore. When magazines were in vogue, that was before the rise of the internet. Once the internet was able to present information expeditiously in a variety of areas all at once, magazines were no longer needed. In the advent of COVID recently, although it was already starting to be like, gamers, developers were having their own conferences and doing their own thing. But the advent of COVID really shut that down because the big thing about E3 was that it was a festival. It was WrestleMania. It was a culmination, the celebration of games for the hardcore gamers, and not just the hardcore gamers. Different companies would get in on it, advertising, things like that. It was a big event. COVID shut that down, and these companies realized we can probably save money and create our own narratives around how our games are presented if we do this ourselves. I mean, I remember just like every E3, I was like, man, I can't wait to see what the new Ubisoft game is, which is one of the few positives of like Ubisoft that it has a very negative connotation, but one of the few positives of Ubisoft is that they would always have a new game every year. It might not be Assassin's Creed, it might not, but because they presented the game every year, they were the perfect E3 bait because they always had something to show, and usually would be like hella big, open world, look cool, kind of design wise. But then Ubisoft, like, we can do that ourselves. Why would we wait on that? We have like 9, 10, 12 games. Like, these companies can't wait anymore. They have multiple games in the docket. They have a certain amount of money to make it to get these games out. They can't wait half a year, sometimes 8 months to this one event to present a game that's coming out 2 to 3 months after. They got to get that show on the road early. There's too much competition. We know this year, just in the month of February and March alone, there was so much competition in games. I can't even play all the games I want to play. Elden Ring caught me by the hand and said, "Look, brother, you stick with me for about 2 months. That's about it. You ain't going with nobody else. I finished Wonderland. It's over there. Weird West is weird. Keep that weird stuff over there for now. All these other games, Dying Light 2, sorry, bro, you with me." So, like it's disheartening because I always saw E3 as like such a cool idea because it really gave gamers a place to really celebrate with each other the love of video games. And of course, there's commercialism involved with it too. It is a business. There's some tricks and tirades out there. We can always talk about how the E3 trailers would always look worse. The game would look worse than the E3 trailers. There was always some visibility, some lies, some witchcraft behind the scenes. But F all that. I love the spectacle. And losing that spectacle is going to kind of suck. But as the game industry moves forward and evolves, now we have the Summer Games Fest. These different companies have their own presentations. Sage mentioned Nintendo Direct, which I believe, to me, does it the best. Like their presentation of Nintendo Direct, people love that. People love Nintendo Direct so much. Other companies, small indie companies like the Rivals of Aethers developers, they've copied that format. Or the Shovel Knight developers, they literally have that same format. They have copied that format. Exactly, Devolver, like they saw what Nintendo was doing. Now they're doing their own thing. You could also say Nintendo almost was kind of ahead of their time too, because now other companies are mimicking what they're doing. And it's still exciting to be a gamer though, because we get more stuff across the year now. It is hard to keep up with, like Will said, and I am kind of sad about E3, but I think it's just the way of things at this moment.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you are right about literally all of that. It is like, as far as having companies have like, okay, I gotta wait until the middle of the year, like it may not be ready. And like, if for people that don't know, it's actually a lot of work to make what they call a vertical slice, which is like, I'm gonna show you just a segment of the game that works because the rest of the game is still unfinished. And so we're just gonna run you through like a quick mission and shit like that. That takes time. That takes a lot of effort. and they might not be ready, but they also may not have a choice because that's going to be the only time, or that was at one point the only time they could do it. That time has passed. Like, you can put up a game trailer whenever you want, tweet about it, and then IGN, GameSpot, and everybody else will be on it and like tell the whole world about it within a matter of minutes. Like, they that's how it is now. And so this idea that you have to wait, like, why wait? And then the other thing is, I can get the news cycle to myself because during E3, it was comprised, it was compacted down into 3 days. You got like your, well, four with, if you count an EA. You had your EA Access, I believe. No, it was EA Play. EA Play. You had on Sunday, it would be like Microsoft and Bethesda, which is funny in hindsight. Then you'd have on Monday, it'd be like Sony and everybody else, Square Enix, Ubisoft, all of them. And then finally on Tuesday, it'd be Nintendo Direct. Okay, well, that's 4 days of a shit ton of games. And unless you're a hardcore like us, if you're even remotely casual, you're not going to catch all the games. Like, you're going to miss something that you really wanted. Now, I'm a fucking geek. I'm going to sit down and take a list and make a note like, okay, these are the games that I want. But like, everybody's not like that. They might miss a whole game that they would have loved because it's just too many games at one time, and they don't have to do that anymore. Even when Jeff Keighley talked about Summer Game Fest, it was spread out across like a whole fucking month. Like, he was like, oh, it's going to take place in June. He said that because like, when he did it 2 years ago, because E3 was just gone entirely, when he did it 2 years ago, it was spread out across like 3 months, and everybody hated it because it was like, eventually, I'm tapped out. I just don't care anymore because like once you get all the big majors out of the way, once you get your Sony, your Nintendo, your Microsoft, your Square, your Ubisoft, once you get those 5 out of the way, everybody else is kind of like, I guess like like, oh, we have future game show or like a PC gaming show. You kind of, your eyes glaze over. You stop caring. Spread out over a month, or compressed into a month instead of like 3 months, it's going to turn out much better. And then I do want to mention, as far as like E3 trailers being a lie, I mean, like, once that Cyberpunk bit hit the internet of like 45 minutes of gameplay, and then you actually play it and it turned out to be nothing, I'm like, damn, if y'all can lie about 45 minutes of gameplay, y'all can lie about anything. Fuck it. So, but Terrence, how do you feel? Like, does it bum you out that you'll never get a chance to go to E3? And how do you feel about E3 potentially going away?
So everybody here has made some great points. Raheem, especially, you talking about how E3 was just this celebration of just gaming and just gamers in general. Like, I remember back in the early 2000s when I was in high school, just waiting for this was back when you couldn't just readily stream E3 like on your phone or your laptop or anything like that. Like back then, G4, Tech TV, whatever they were at that time, they would not stream it, but they would be at the actual show, and they would show each segment of the E3 conference. And I just remember that time just being magical, just because I remember, just coming to school the next day and just talking with friends about like, yo, did you see this game? Did you see that game? Like, yo, when that comes out, that's going to be amazing. I can't wait to play that. And yes, I guess like the kid or the teen in me is going to kind of miss that, but times have changed, just, like you all have mentioned, there are just so many industries now that have been completely revamped because of the internet. And, E3 is unfortunately just another one of them. And yeah, everybody, all these companies now, they can do like essentially their own little mini E3s. Sony has their state of plays, and before they got rid of it, they had their December event, which I can't think of the name of. What was it called? PlayStation Experience. Yeah. They used to have PlayStation Experience. Xbox, they can, do whatever. And I guess that's the thing now, is that you're not limited, and you all brought this up, you're not limited to that June time frame anymore, where and yeah, I could see that being a pain in the ass for all these developers to try and make something work just within that small time frame. You pretty much have just this 1 week in June where all these games suddenly need to be revealed, and you have to have something ready. That's a lot of pressure. So now that you can reveal anything at any time throughout the year without having to worry about, oh, we have to meet like this specific time, unless, of course, the publisher is making you meet a certain time, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, you don't have to worry about being crunched into this one little week in this 1 month and having your game look good enough to where everybody will want to play it. Now you can announce it in November, December, February, whenever. And you can also have things like Sony State of Play that gives you an update on what's going on with the game before its release. Or you can have like a Nintendo Direct where they have like maybe like a short direct that's just centered on Pokemon or centered on just a specific game series. And then they maybe have like a major direct where they show more games like they had recently where they had a bunch of games that they showed off. And then last week they announced like the delay of Breath of the Wild, but they were able to just do that all on its own. They didn't have to wait for like an E3 or something like that to unfortunately make that kind of announcement. So while it is sad, like the nostalgic side of me is sad to not have E3 anymore. And they have E3 has said, let's just set the record straight. E3 they have said that, or the ESA they have said they're going to return next year. But
hold on. Before you go on, honest question: do you think that there's a chance that anybody because it costs money to sign up for E3? Like you have to spend money as a developer.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody's going to care in 2023?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that I really don't think it's going to matter. And if they do have one, I think it's going to be at a reduced scale, and eventually E3 is going to be phased out. I just don't really see it sticking around. If they do keep E3, I don't think it's going to be the same kind of E3 that we had in years past. I just don't.
Right.
Yeah, I just think times have changed, and developers have found an easier way to show their games off. So E3 just isn't as necessary. Like I said, the nostalgic side of me is sad, and yeah, there is that. One day that I want to go to E3 is kind of like Evo. I would love to go to Evo one day, but if it makes it easier for developers to get their games out there without having to worry about crunching it all into just this one little conference, so be it. I'm fine with it. I actually like tuning into the streams. I like being able to watch other people stream their reactions to these conferences. So times have just changed, and it is what it is. You can either keep up or get left behind.
Very true.
Very true. Like one thing I do appreciate your perspective because we didn't talk about what E3 meant to us because I do have that same kind of. I think by the time I tapped into E3 as a every year yearly type thing and made sure to pay attention, we had already hit the 2010s, 2011s, and by that point, E3 was kind of fading away. I do remember at one point though we thought E3 was going to die ages ago. 2004, 2005, somewhere in that period. They had a problem with E3 for whatever reason, and they had to scale way down. And for a year
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, remember there was for a year or two they scaled way down. I don't remember what specific. It was definitely.
Didn't they make it where I don't remember it. I don't know how often E3 has been available to the general public. I don't know if it's really been just open like that. But there was a point where they
very recently.
Yeah, there was a point where they really scaled it down to where only a select amount of journalists or something like that were. I know the time period that you're referring to. I don't remember exactly why it happened, but I do remember that there was a huge switch up one of those years.
It was strictly like you said, journalists. Mostly developers, creators, journalists, and maybe the offhand person that was just oh, I'm backstage here. That's about as most as you got. Until then, they started making it that.
Now, for the most part, it's always been like that as far as only having. But what happened was they wound up having to scale down to a smaller area, a smaller convention center, and all of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened that allowed them to scale back up. I don't know if it was the next gen came along because I believe this was before PS3 came along.
Yeah, I think
if I'm not mistaken, this is pre PS3. Mm-hmm. And then as PS3 came, I guess the popularity and the people wanting to spend money allowed the ESA to be nope, we scaling back up. And now they're scaling. They'll probably, if they do it again, like Terrence said, they will have to scale right back down and do something small because a lot of developers just aren't going to care. I don't think, and I don't know that there's a way out of it this time. Last time, it was still. When you think about it, I said pre-PS3, that was a time period where you could still get a lot of your news out of a magazine and not be that out of date. Them times is over with. You can't go pick up a magazine unless the magazine is doing exclusive interviews and shit like that with information that nobody's going to let get out until publication. For the most part, by the time a magazine comes out, the information is well out of date. And that's just where you're going to be so the idea of the ESA really is supposed to be like an advocacy group for like video games. They go to like they help in Congress and shit like that. And they might need to just go back to doing that and like advocating for video games, First Amendment, that type shit, and leave E3 like kind of in the past. It's unfortunate, but that kind of is what it is. The only thing I will say that I don't like about going forward from companies is that this new digital era is making companies do more commercials. And what I mean by commercials, it's all commercials really. But there's a difference between telling me about a game I don't know about or showing me more about a game where it's like the first time you showed it was like a cinematic. And like like how does this play? What's it gonna be like? They didn't tell you none of that. And so the second time you see it, you finally get a hint of what it's like. That's cool. That's different from like showing me a game that I've seen 50,000 times before, or showing me like, oh, here's this Genshin Impact trailer. And it's like, bro, I know about Genshin Impact. I either played it and don't like it, or I played it and love it, or like I've moved on from it. Like I've played it and had enough. I had my fill and I moved on. Like when they start showing you stuff that's effectively just a commercial and it's just like to get the promotion out there, that's when I get annoyed. And I do feel like E3 kind of forced people to be like, no, you got to condense, you got to cut that out. We're only going to show stuff that's like mega important and get like as much new information to the audience as possible. I am going to miss that because like once you leave it into the hands of the single company, they're going to think about their bottom line and like, well, this is a great chance to promote some shit you already know about it. Like that kind of sucks. And that was tiresome when I covered E3 last year on my Twitch stream. It was a little tiresome then, and I imagine it's not going to get better. But I mean, that I believe is going to wrap it up for this week. If you like the show, I appreciate it. I love you guys. There's 3 things I need you to do. I need you to subscribe to us on YouTube. I need you to tell your friends about us, and I need you to have an amazing week. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.